Jessica Johnson, and I'm here with another district update. And today I have Miss Maria Silva, who is our Bilingual and ESL Director for the district. Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us, how long have you been in the district, Maria?
I have been in Cleveland ISD. This is my third year.
Very good. And as the Bilingual ESL Director, that entails a lot of different kind of hats that you, in many jobs that you do. What does that exactly entail?
Well, I work with the bilingual program. I work with the ESL program as well, and then everything that encompasses both programs: staff development, trainings, testing, just those various things, budget, all of those things that entail with the bilingual program.
Help me wrap my mind around this. Bilingual goes from what grade to what grade?
The bilingual program goes from pre-K to 5th grade.
Okay, and then the ESL is from what grade to what grade?
The ESL program is a program that runs from pre-K to 12th grade.
So we have ESL and bilingual also simultaneously from kinder or pre-K through 5th grade.
Correct.
But it's only ESL starting at the 6th grade up. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and ESL stands for?
English as a second language, and usually the students that participate in that program are students that speak any other language that's not Spanish.
And I think a lot of people think that when you talk about ESL, you talk about kids that just don't speak English, but we have other languages in our district besides just Spanish speaking, right?
Yes, we do. We have some students that speak Chinese,
Wow.
And we also have students that speak Urdu.
Okay, and those kids are automatically put into an ESL program.
Based on assessment, we place the students in the ESL program. Yes.
Okay. Now, and you mentioned this earlier, you said something about testing. There's a special test that the limited English proficient students, or what they call the LEP students, have to take, and it's called TELPAS. What exactly is TELPAS?
TELPAS is a state assessment that measures the English language proficiency of the students. It is, the title of it is the Texas English Language Proficiency Assessment System.
Ooh, that's a mouthful.
It's
And what exactly does that assess with those kids?
It assesses the listening, the speaking, the reading, and the writing components of the language.
Okay.
And so based on in order to assess the listening and the speaking, it's an observation that's done by the teachers. The writing, they have to complete writing samples, and the reading is an online reading test for grades 2 to 12, and the kindergarten through 1st grade students, it is done by the teacher or observation.
So they're looked at and assessed in 4 different areas.
Yes, 4 different domains.
And now you talked about the writing samples. Let's talk about that briefly. So every student that is TELPAS assessed has to give a writing sample. How many writing samples are supposed to be collected as per the state?
The state requires 5 writing samples per student.
Wow.
And so 2 have to come from a subject area. 1 is a narrative about a past event, and the 2 are district choice.
Very good. And when they say content area, we're not just talking language arts or ELAR. We're talking about it could be in science, it could be in social studies, it could be in math.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And so we collect these writing samples, and what do we do with these writing samples?
The writing samples are collected based on specific criteria. Then the teacher, the rater, the certified rater, which is the teacher that is rating the student on the writing component, will take the samples and rate the student based on proficiency level descriptors that the state has for us to assess them with.
It sounds like it's really prescriptive from what the state wants us to do.
Yes, there's a process.
It is a process.
It is a process.
Now, you mentioned earlier that it was kinder through 12th grade that are tested. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So does that mean that the kids that take the TELPAS, they don't have to take tax?
No, this is a separate assessment.
Ah, so they have to do this in addition to the tax.
It's in addition to the tax test.
And so we're really assessing these kids a lot.
Yes.
To see what their progress is as they go through each grade level, correct? And once the students are identified and they take this particular assessment, what's the next step for these students?
Once they take the assessment, it's measured by the state, and the state gives us back the data. Once we get the data,
Mhm.
it determines whether what we're going to work on with these students the following year. For example,
Mhm.
if they need extra assistance in the listening component or the speaking component or the reading component, then we target our instruction to meet the needs of the students.
Very good.
We do have a English language proficiency criteria that we look at every year, and we based on that, we determine what programs the students will be served with.
Very good. And so it really drives their instruction. The data drives the instruction on
yes.
what and how they have been progressing, right?
Yes.
Well, that's pretty good. So does that mean once I'm in the program, I always have to take that test, or how can a student exit out of the program?
As long as the student is limited English proficient and they have not met exit criteria, they continue to take the assessment.
Okay.
Once they meet exit criteria, then the student will no longer have to take the assessment.
What is that exit criteria? Can you think of that off the top of your head?
The exit criteria to exit the bilingual or ESL program
Mhm.
is based on tax results. The students have to pass the tax reading in English,
Mhm.
plus an oral language proficiency test where they have to score fluent, on which the district gives the Woodcock Munoz for that.
Mhm.
And as well, they have to score advanced high on the writing portion of the TELPAS.
Wow. So there's a lot of hurdles that these kids have got to go through. And that's why you made the comment earlier that the kids take the tax test.
Yes, ma'am.
But now you said something to me that just jogged my memory. I just wanted to be clear. They can take the tax test in English or in Spanish up to what grade?
Up to 5th grade. The Spanish test is only available up to 5th grade,
Okay.
and the student can only take a Spanish administered test for 3 years.
Okay. So once the child moves from Spanish tax testing to English tax testing and they score proficient there, that is another hurdle that they can exit out of the
Yes,
TELPAS,
they
right?
must meet all 3 exit criteria
Okay.
within that year.
Very good. All at 1 year, not 1 year we can do this and another year it
Correct.
has to be all at 1 year.
All in 1 year.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
very good. And now we talked about the students, but let's talk about the teachers. How do we get our teachers ready to help these students? What do they have to do? Anything special?
Yes, the teachers have to go through what is called a calibration process.
Ooh, that's a big word.
And what that is the teachers have to go through an online training
Mhm.
where they get rated and calibrated. And once they pass that assessment, then they do one in the spring, and then they do one in the fall. Well, they do it the fall first, and then they
Right.
do the spring. And so in the spring, once they get calibrated, then they're able to administer the assessment.
And I'm still getting used to that word calibration and calibrated, because up until this year it used to be qualifying.
Correct.
Right? And I don't know why they changed the terminology, but they do. So now it's calibration and calibrated, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there's a lot of training that goes on. And this online training, it's not from Cleveland ISD, it's from the state of Texas, correct?
That's correct. It's a state training, and it's all done online, and it's maintained in a testing site.
Okay, so about how much training is involved in all of this? How much time is involved?
It depends on how quickly the teacher goes through the modules, but on average, it's between 3 to 6 hours of training.
Oh, holy moly. Really? That's a lot.
Yes, it is.
And do they have to do it once they're calibrated or qualified, whichever one you want to say? Once they're calibrated or qualified, do they have to do any more training?
Once they're calibrated for that year,
Uh-huh.
they're considered certified raters for that year. The following year, they will have to go back and do some sort of refresher training
Wow.
to continue having their certification or their credentials for
And
it.
is that another 3 to 6 hour chunk of time?
It just depends. When they're recalibrated, it's about an hour to 2 hours.
Okay, so it's kind of like a refresher or an update to remind them how to do everything correctly.
Yes.
And why do you think the state of Texas went to this online for everybody in the state of Texas? Is it for consistency maybe?
Yes, it's for consistency, and it's to make sure that everyone is rating the students at the same level.
Now, the state comes in and does a thing called an audit And sometimes we participate in this audit, and it's kind of random, isn't it?
Yes, it is. They select certain students that they want the audited documents for. And usually what they'll ask for is their writing samples and to make sure that the writing samples meet the state criteria.
So not only are they looking through consistency throughout all of the state of Texas through those writing random audits, but they're also making sure that we're on target on exiting these students out and
Yes.
monitoring their progress. Okay. So, Maria, what if you were a parent or a grandparent sitting out in the audience, what are some tips or hints that you would give them to help our students be more successful?
Since we're dealing with language here, exposure to the language,
Oh, yes.
speaking to other students, you know, in the playground or taking them to the movies or any exposure to the language that the student can get.
Listening to TV.
Watching TV, putting the caption on the TV,
That's
those
a great,
sort of things.
yes. That also helps
Reading with them
fluency.
aloud.
Yes.
All of those type of things.
Very good. Well, it sounds like you've got a big job ahead of you because TELPAS actually started this week, didn't it?
Yes, it did. It started March 7th.
So, who have already started their TELPAS testing? What campuses?
Northside has already started with the reading, middle school, high school, and Douglas.
And when you talk about the reading, you're talking about those are the ones that are online.
Yes, online.
And
The online
so our
reading.
students are taking an online test on
Yes,
reading
as we
only.
speak.
Right, as we speak. All right. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
coming. You gave us a lot of food for thought, so I appreciate it. Well, that's it. It's a wrap. We'll talk to you next time.